And action. Thank you all for coming tonight to hear our reading. This is Kevin Klein. Uh, I'm Scott Hales, and we're here to read some poems for you. How do you want to do it? We usually have introductions from our
Sure.
publisher.
Tell us about yourself.
But I'm going to introduce Kevin,
Okay, and then I'll
and you can
introduce you.
introduce me. So Kevin and I have known each other now for off and on, kind of like couple years.
5, 6 years, yeah.
But we really got to know each other through a group called Mopo Rimo on Facebook. We're a bunch of Latter-day Saint poets during the month of February. Online, we write a poem a day and share it with everyone. And so that's really how we got to know each other's work. And so I've been working on some poems for this collection for a while, and Kevin has never published a collection before, and I have, over the years, kind of encouraged him to publish because his work's really good. But I'm not taking credit for your book. I'm just saying that over time I have occasionally said, Kevin, you should publish a book. But so he is a poet by night, and by day he is a elementary school teacher at what's the school?
Saratoga Shores.
Saratoga Shores.
Yep.
And it's fifth grade?
Sixth grade.
Sixth grade.
Yeah.
That was my first guess. Anything else I should say?
It sounds pretty good.
Okay.
Scott's written a couple things. I think they're church related. I can't remember the names of it. It's like sages.
I think it's called Mormons.
That's right. Meet the Saints. I think that's what it's called. So, yeah, he's done great work. We were kind of talking about, we had collections coming together at the same time. And my poems, I've been working on these. I did a master thesis of poetry like 20 years ago, and just finally said, okay, yeah, I should probably get them out and with new ones put out a collection. We were talking about who to approach. There's about 3 options in our community, people who would be interested in publishing Latter-day Saint themed poetry. And so I don't even think we both knew we were going to talk to Greg Colford.
The only reason I talked to him is because you said you were going to talk to him.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they said, hey, we got 2 manuscripts. We like both of these. And it's great to, put 2 out at once. Here is one. Mother's Day is coming up, and it's in Utah County, where I have lived for a bit of my life. Cottonwood trees, they grow along the Provo River, lots of cotton. Ever seen that? And this is called Allergies for Janet. It's she was when I was in college, I was a big brother for this family, and she had a bunch of kids and a single mom, and was just doing her best to provide for them in all senses, including emotionally, which pets can really help. And so this poem is about that. I use a form that Robert Frost, it's kind of a humorous form, where every line ending is the same rhyme. And so it's Allergies for Janet. On Mother's Day, it snows in our backyard, the kind that grows on cottonwoods and makes my nose itch inside the nostrils, almost close, but somehow still drip. And as it blows into the grass, the cotton that is, I see your clothes and the pet hair stuck in them, all those rabbits, ducks, dogs, and cats that I suppose you never thought about wanting, but chose for your kids the way a tree knows its seeds will fall, and makes pillows for their landing when the wind throws them beyond even your branches' shadows.
That's a good applause. That's very good. Okay. This one is, since we have history and museum people here, this is one called Daughter of the Pioneers. So a couple of years ago, I went to St. George. Actually, Sarah had a conference, and I tagged along. And while she was doing her conference stuff, I kind of went around and visited some places in St. George. And one of the places was the Daughters of the Utah Pioneers Museum in St. George. And the docent there was very enthusiastic to have me there. And this was during the time of COVID, which comes out, I think, in the poem. So, daughter of the pioneers. Like a lion wrangler, she pulls me into a room furnished entirely, she claims, with furniture made by Brigham Young. And though my face is the picture of skepticism, I'm wearing a mask, so she rewards my muffled wow with a satisfied smile. From there, we charge across the hall to see shoes so narrow they look like doll slippers, and she tells me how her grandma could not walk more than a mile because of her tiny feet. And can you believe how small the pioneers were compared to us today? But boy, could they make things last. Laugh if you want. I nod and follow her to another display, a century-old wedding cake beside a case of silkworm cocoons. Whispering, she tells how pioneer women incubated them in the warmth between their breasts until the silk sacks stirred and the worms wiggled free, and I nod again and murmur my wow because I have no idea if what she's saying is true. So we go, room by room. Here's a drum someone's uncle played in the funeral procession of the martyrs, and that heavy flat iron there, the one with the worn wooden handle. It's honest to goodness proof that pioneer women were just as strong as pioneer men. Pick it up, you'll see. She tells me about every knick-knack and broken piece of bric-a-brac between me and the door, but the thing she points out again and again is the size of the clothes. Imagine, she says, how odd it must have been to be so small in such a rough and tumble world where shoes were neither left nor right. And here, let me show you some handmade lace. Daughter of the time. You're going to read your St. George poem now?
Yes. How'd you know?
As a guess.
That reminded me, yeah, St. George. So I have to, and especially because this is about my mother-in-law who is visiting from Australia. And today is a special day in Australian history. They have the Federation Day, which is the day they became a country rather than just a colony. And but there's not a lot of fanfare with that. It's just like, yay, we signed a paper. So they also have kind of a 4th of July, a day where they forged their national identity through smoke and war and violence. And that was during World War I, Gallipoli. You ever seen that movie? It's a fantastic movie. And so that is April 25th. It's called Anzac Day. Anzac stands for Australia New Zealand Army Corps. So today is Anzac Day. They have a dawn parade. They have lots of patriotic things happening in Australia today. And this poem is for my mother-in-law, Gail, if you're watching. Love you, mate. Pioneer woman, St. George. She was visiting us at the time we went down to the St. George Temple. And it's about my wife, who was a pioneer. They were church pioneers in their family. She brought her family to this God-forsaken place at his request. She will petition until he reconsiders, and the crops cover the reproach of a parched red valley where not a single tree grows. Only yesterday they unhitched the team, emptied the wagon, pitched the tent. Everything they lack is exactly what they'll ask him with, his faith. Tomorrow begins the digging, cutting, carting water in leaky 2 small buckets from streams they've already named and prayed for to run through summer. All day, heat waves conjured the mirage or vision of oases, towns, a promised land that will flourish through his covenants and hers. The late sun glares across a horizon of olive sagebrush. The woman shields her solemn brown and green-flecked eyes from the past, its poverty and riches, shields them from this sunset, squints but doesn't blink, until the bushes flame, until she too is afire and not consumed.
Well, as Kevin was reading, I was looking up here and seeing Brother Joseph looking down at me from Fawn Brody's biography, which there are others out there. Hers was one of the first, though. And I just thought I've got a couple Joseph Smith poems in the book. So actually, let me kind of talk about the organization. So The first, so it's organized into five parts. So the first part are a group of poems about they're about Catholic saints, and I kind of draw some parallels between their lives and my life and other people's lives. And I might read some of those tonight. Then there's the group of poems called The Ranks of Ghosts, which is all their Latter-day Saint history poems. There's one called Our Forgotten Valley, which is about Cedar Valley, Utah, where I live. And then some Handmade Lace, which is all poems about people I know. And some of them are dedicated to people I know. And then finally, we have an afterthought, in which I have one poem called Advice to a Young Mormon Poet. So this comes from The Ranks of Ghosts, and it's called Third Witness. And it is about Martin Harris, one of the three witnesses of the Book of Mormon, or the Gold Plates. And it's called Third Witness because he was the third of them. He was the last of the three to see the plates. So it talks a little bit about. So the story here is I think it was Mormon History Association or Mormon Scholars in the Humanities had a conference up in Cache Valley a couple of years ago. And early one morning, I got up and drove over to Clarkston, Utah, where he is buried, to visit his grave. And so this is about that. So, third witness. We stand together at sunrise, Brother Martin, me and your monument. It reaches out, a granite giant screaming your name across an empty valley. When you died, 16 teams of wagons, well filled, climbed this rise to bury your bones. Clarkston was no city on a hill, but the folks here did their duty, kissing your boot leather face goodbye with burning coals on their lips and your witness like evening frog song in their ears. You said you saw an angel in the woods and they believed you. Other times your words ran fast like rivers after rain, toppling mountains, spilling over valleys, flooding fields. Like every Adam's son, you were imperfect. Jesus called you wicked, and we let you bear that cross even now, here on this Golgotha, this crumbling stage with concrete steps and aluminum seats. This is your life, brother. How long has it been? When Oliver Cowdery stepped across the veil, he waited decades beside a wheel-rutted road. Then Emma came, Charon-like, to pick him up in a sturdy carriage. At first, they traveled in silence, neither one eager to reach deep into the hornet's nest of the past. But Emma, her hands loose on the reins, soon spoke of the house in Harmony where she and Joseph and Oliver sat together each evening by the blackened hearth, their faces dancing red with firelight and shadow, as she led them in song. So they traveled, those two side by side with memory, until they came to the Missouri River, its eastern bank a snarl of stones and roots. You know, we did all right, Emma told Oliver. When you cross the river, you'll see. And there she left him, waist deep in the water, ready to swim. Brother Martin, wicked man, who came for you? Or are you still waiting at the roadside? Your body rests today beyond the glow of traffic lights, and if I'm being honest, this town seems too small for you. But how great it must be to be remembered. We all want to see an angel to witness to the world. You did both. If you're still waiting, wait for me. You're up.
All right. I was going to read this poem anyway, but got a good friend who just showed up here. Dave was part of the marketing team there. I was making content, and Dave and I would get together and talk. So I hope I don't embarrass you, but this poem was one I wrote after one of our conversations about a really amazing story this guy had. So it's written in a form. I should probably explain, like Scott did, the format of this book. It's called Loved Ones. There are 4 sections of the book: faith, hope, charity, and love. Kind of the way Joseph Smith talked about it in Doctrine and Covenants, section 4. He's taking that from 1 Corinthians 13. There's faith, hope, and charity. Why do we need love? In the scriptures, most of the time, charity is love, and it's translated as such. But I have an interesting thesis. Well, I think it's interesting, so you'll have to check it out. But this is Making of a Patriarch, and this is in the hope section. The Making of a Patriarch for Dave Black, a good man and survivor of the following true story. My life should have ended on that altar of ice and stone when I fell or rapidly descended 60 feet beside the frozen waterfall that I had been climbing ropeless and alone. That's all. My life should have ended, and it did. It was no longer mine. I plummeted, slid feet first, blew out my spine, but several natural laws had been suspended for that and some cracked ribs to be the worst. I wasn't paralyzed, no organs burst or cleanly broken bones. I couldn't walk, but at least I wouldn't bleed to death alone and hopeless. And my parka was the phone that I had reactivated the day before, and I could breathe in just enough to talk. If I'd been made an angel, who could tell the messenger from message that I bore? After having rapidly descended, or plain fell through that December dusk, with no blood spilled outside my skin, and nothing broken but my heart at how these wings' white feathers filled the ambulance for my parka ripped apart by an EMT to save my life when clearly it was not in danger and no longer mine. Why did I make that ropeless, lonely climb? My family and I myself have dearly wanted to know. Who understands? A martyr's gamble to flush out the face of God or find the only place that's safe from him, his hands. And here I am, an angel who descended or plain fell. What matters is the mark of my belonging, steel rods in my back, one for Moses, one for Aaron, both to turn my 40 Sinai years to growth. Whatever I become or have or lack, there's no deciding now. I hear his thoughts in mine, a whisper not to fear the kindly light more faithfully than the dark. Climbing once more, roped and not alone, lifting the trust of children with my own, a fallen angel, rising patriarch.
You want funny or sweet?
Yes.
You only read one at a time, right? All right. Let's do sweet. So tomorrow is my wedding anniversary, our wedding anniversary. 23 years. There are two poems in this book about us. And this one makes me smile. And I think it makes her smile too. Well, let's hope. If not. It's called Running Through Cedar Pass at Sunrise. Cedar Pass is a subdivision near my house. Seeing Flat Top Mountain this morning, its cold peak a paint pot of orange and rose, I'm reminded of reading Wordsworth as a sophomore in eastern Idaho, when every spontaneous overflow of powerful 200-year-old feeling made me yearn to... This is embarrassing part right here. Spontaneous overflow of powerful 200-year-old feeling made me yearn to tear shirtless through the wilderness, just beyond the undulating lava plain, outside the library window. I wanted the world for my backyard, a garden paradise where my poems took root and sprouted branches, with leaves so green they inspired more poetry to spring from the earth. And I wanted you sitting beside me on a picnic blanket, congratulating yourself on falling in love with the shirtless poet whose poem was the very tree giving us shade. But now, as I approach a steep hill and feel a dull ache in my right calf, I mistake Shetland ponies for sheep and wince at the unfamiliar warmth of manure in the air. Sure signs our backyard goes no farther than the vinyl fence dividing our property from the neighbors. And I know my poems have never become trees, but you do read them, grateful for my day job and yours. Thank you.
Love that one. Speaking of day jobs, as Scott mentioned, I teach sixth graders. They're in elementary school in our district, which I think is great. Just preserves them that one extra year from the horrors of junior high. It occurred to me several years ago that junior high is kind of like the mortality in the plan of salvation, right? Um, yeah, never has the distribution of resources and attributes. It's never going to be as inequitable as it is right now, and that just characterizes junior high. I started writing a poem about it, and here it is. It's called Middle School Band Concert. We fill the auditorium abuzz. The lights dim, a hush falls. The backing band strikes up, and God strides on stage, beaming. No need, of course, for a spotlight. He waves to each of us at the same time and keeps his pitch to a single slide. 3 circles in a row, then 3 more stacked, with some arrows between them. A pause to let it sink in. And oh, how we morning stars applauded. Or did the war happen first? Who knows? Was there even a Q&A? No one remembers. It seems, though, that by design we came slowly and only through unspeakable loss to any certainties. Birth and death, sure, but this cosmically important, comically larval stage, was it really worth fighting over? At any rate, here we are, mortality, the junior high of eternity. Here we are at our son's first band concert of 7th grade. The warm-up evokes to closed eyes a protest of plaintive zoo animals, their cries for freedom strangled by the lifting of a baton. In that mercifully silent unison, we brace ourselves. There is a slow-mo explosion of tempos and pitches. There is no other way. We tap our feet in sympathy, telepathy, saying, "Here, my dear child, is the beat." God, in that premortal rally, you chose this as your hype song, these as your MCs. No scale model of our fallen world, no case studies, disability simulations, or drunk goggles could have prepared us. Which was your whole point? I watch a page of sheet music topple off a tuba player's crooked stand, and somehow, without missing a beat, his tuba mate shifts her own between them with one hand. It doesn't improve the song, just the concert. Thank you.
That's good. So I used to be a teacher as well before I got my current day job. And I taught for about 9 years at the college level. And every once in a while, I have a desire to go back to the classroom. But being married to an educator and then just kind of remembering the sort of things that I used to have to put up with as a teacher, I remember why I'm really glad I am where I am. Though I do appreciate and value the work of educators. But this one's called Classroom Management. This is one of the poems about Catholic saints. And it's also about teaching and how I used to teach. Whenever I long to see chalk dust, it's called Classroom Management. Did I say that? Okay, I did say that. Sorry. Classroom Management. Whenever I long to see chalk dust on my shoes or have lesson plans again in my head, I remember St. Cassian of Imola, the Roman school teacher so smitten with the good news of Christ that he refused to pray to pagan gods, not even to get tenure. Unimpressed, the emperor or department chair, I can't remember who, tied him to a tetherball post in the middle of the playground and sentenced him to death by students. And how the students came, slates and iron styly in hand, ready to turn these tools lethal, to slay the pious pedant who slapped their hands and swatted their rumps for failing tests and chewing bubblegum in class. Later, the kid said it was a joy to slay him so slowly, one small stab of the styly or slap of the slate at a time. Ready to die a martyr's death, he urged them to all hurry, but still they delayed, disobedient to the end, consulting scrawled anatomy notes to avoid piercing major arteries or slashing vital organs. It made him proud to see them apply his lessons so. Before they dealt the killing blow, he gave them all top marks. Classroom management.
All right. This is a poem about my son when he was, about the same age, about 12. And it's a villanelle, which is a type of formal poetry. You'll hear the rhymes in them. Scott has a really great villanelle in his book as well. A little plug for that. It's called New Deacon. It is our son's first trip down the chapel aisle, steering a silver tray of broken bread. Repentant faces lift his way and smile. Our flock, dear villagers who raised this child to bear our burdens, bear their burdens, keep their spirits fed, beginning with this trip down the chapel aisle. He follows solemnly the loping file of taller boys, and his too inclined head makes us turn to each other, shrug, and smile. This earnestness and shoes that for a while will still be much too big seem to have led to his hopefully only trip down the chapel aisle. With scuff, then cry and clatter, clang and sprawl, the ordinance's dignity has fled. Startled faces crane his way, then smile at us. We nod. What better place to fall than here where all things rise? Hands rugburn red, he picks tray bread and self up from the aisle, too sheepish and too shepherded not to smile.
So let's do a serious poem. So several of these poems reflect on just hard things. That's why the title is called Sacred Scar. I think we receive scars in this lifetime, and while they hurt, they can be sacred for the things that we learn from them. And so there are a couple poems in here that talk about death. And this is, I think, one of the first. This is the first one that's personal to me. That kind of conclude the volume. And this is about the first time I experienced the death of a loved one, which was my cousin. So I had two cousins when I was a kid who both died of tumors, brain cancers. I think that's what it was. I was really too young to really know what was going on. So this is about that, about the death of the second of the two cousins. And the poem is called Cousin. I remember the afternoon my mom sat me down at the kitchen table, me and my other siblings, or maybe just the older three, and told us how a tumor in your brain had made you blind, and how relieved I was because your sister had just died, and blindness by comparison did not seem so bad. I only saw you once after that, my only memory of you, and I can still see us on the floor at Grandma's house, you holding a pair of dice, and everyone thinking how great it was because you were blind and playing board games like a regular kid, and how we cheered you on as you tossed the dice a little too hard, and how they skipped across the board like two flat stones on a glassy lake with just enough force to fly straight at my face. You died soon after that, and late last night, when I forgot your name, I searched online for your obituary and found a photograph of you in a white dress. And I remember that picture hanging on our refrigerator, a tiny shrine to a dead blind girl, and how even though we weren't close, I claimed your tragedy as my own. This is my cousin who died, I'd tell my friends, and if they caught me crying, I'd say I was thinking about you, and sometimes I'd be telling the truth.
All right. My phone's right there, so I have no idea what time it is.
Oh, it's 7:13, so
Okay.
15 more minutes.
Yeah, sounds good.
A couple more.
All right. Right on.
Give the people what they came for.
Yes, right. Okay. Here is, there's a series in the book here under the charity section called 12 Ways of Taking the Sacrament. It's based off of, there's a poet named Wallace Stevens, an American poet of the last century, who wrote 13 Ways of Looking at a Blackbird. And some of those 13 sections of the poem are quite interesting. Some of them I don't find as interesting. But I found this to be a helpful exercise during the sacrament to kind of be inventive or be creative and think of different things that are happening or invent things that could be happening. And so in this series, some of the events are made up and others aren't. This one is a prose poem, which means it kind of reads like a paragraph. But this is based on a true person, a real story. So, without an official component of ritual drama in our sacrament ordinance, I have adopted the weekly struggle between this little girl and her parents. Toddler tufted in a functional pink dress, she prances and ambles down the aisle, almost losing her balance every fourth step, yet still managing to elude their crouch-down shuffle and furtive swiping for her arm. Those of us with grown-up kids revel in the scene, but I understand her parents' reaction. There's the fear of our annoyance and judgment, and perhaps a deeper worry that their daughter is not destroying reverence, but fulfilling it. She must be stopped before her joy infects our penitence, before we start wondering if all sacrament hymns have to sound funereal, before she catches us watching her, stops twirling, and gazes back in radiant amusement, as if to ask, "Oh, you who are redeemed, here to celebrate your redemption, why aren't you dancing too?"
I thought you were going to read like the whole series of poems for that one.
Yeah, 13 minutes, yeah.
And so I thought I had more time. Shucks, which one should I read? Let's do this one. This is one of my favorites in the book. It's the second poem in the collection, and it's kind of about fatherhood, kind of about my kids, kind of about home, kind of about sacred scars. In fact, this is where the title of the book comes from. So this is a poem called Stigmata. It's about my favorite saint, Saint Francis of Assisi. When I think of the 5 wounds of Christ, I think of you, Saint Francis, kneeling in ecstasy on Laverna, your palms open, ready to receive the stigmata from the little seraph on the cross. And I think, too, of the time I swept up trash in Brazil, in my own soft palms, naked against the broom's coarse grain, blistered both and burst, blessing me with my own red set of sores, identical to yours. For a week or so, everyone wanted, like Thomas, to see my hands, to touch the tender, angry marks. Was that how it was for you, day after day, your raw wounds weeping, festering for guests, miracles on display? My wounds eventually went away. Later, when my children were small, we would wave to a wooden statue of you on our way to church. You stood erect, hands out, your arms and shoulders covered in a congregation of birds, as you preached a silent sermon to the wolves in the street. My kids are older now, and we've moved away, but they still talk about you as if you were a favorite uncle or a long-lost friend, a sacred scar of memory, slow to mend.
All right. Long-lost friend. This is someone that Dave and I worked with.
I see what you're doing here.
Sign up. What's that?
I said, I see what you're doing here.
Yeah. And so I would sometimes take a weekend off and just go in the van and just park somewhere and write. And I was always looking for good places to drive out into the desert and do that. Devin was someone we worked with who suggested this place, and I got a really great picture of a sunset there. And it kind of turned into this poem. So it's called Sunset West Utah Desert. Now, Devin is a force of nature. She is a great person, and I hope that comes out in the poem. My friend, you wouldn't believe this. My friend, you wouldn't believe the sunset across this washboard track to your favorite wilderness. Trust me, you said, and here I am, and here it is. Yellow sliver of horizon, big bangs into waves of pink and purple cloud puffs, toasted gold, against pale blue, that atmosphere and metaphor bend into heaven, ridged by the sagebrush jagged silhouette of hillside trickling into night. God painted it all just for me to offer you. My proof You are grinning as you read this. You who wouldn't laugh at me, even if I tried to persuade you face to face that this personal sunset bit was true. You whose faith in death yields goodness that needs no mansions. You who'd rather damn yourself for loving the world too much than not enough. You lightning strike against the universal dark. You reason every final curtain is a veil. And if I meet a closed gate riding westward, I'll call on saints and angels, but first you, who'd rush from whatever kingdom you're enjoying and raise such hell they'll have to let me through. Thank you.
Funny or sad? Let's go with sad. We haven't done. Well, I guess we did do sad, didn't we?
You do a sad. I'll do a sad one too. So.
Oh, we got to end on a high note though. So.
Yeah. Okay, we'll do a funny one at the last. So okay. I'll do a sad one. Yeah.
So this one is called. So I've never read this one out loud before. So we'll see how it goes. If I really mess it up, we'll see how it goes. Fortunately, we're all friends. So this is. So one of the reasons why. So I'm a historian. One of the things I really like about history. One of the things I really like to study about is the 19th century. And the 19th century was a really hard time for people. And this poem was an effort to capture kind of the challenges of life in the 19th century. And it is based on the story of a great aunt of mine who was killed along with her husband and her brother-in-law on their way home from visiting family up in Spanish Fork. And so they lived down in southern Utah, and they were southern Utah, northern Arizona. They were traveling along Short Creek, northern Arizona, in 1866, and they were attacked and killed during the Black Hawk War. And so this is called The Great Mystery, or Isabel Berry on the Eve of Her Demise. So this is meant to take place the night before she and her husband and her brother-in-law were killed. With each rising and setting sun, Isabel watches this weird red land catch fire. But because bereavement and grief have rubbed her heart raw, she perceives the passing world around her wagon, the wind-carved rocks and scrubby trees, as vague shapes and interruptions. And now that it's evening, she waits, listening for the next world to awake, not because night sounds comfort her, but because she needs to know when to hold her hands tight against her ears and pray that coyotes and catamounts and vermin with tiny claws and teeth stay far away. For she has not slept since Robert, her husband, buried their baby in Canaraville, a betrayal that troubles her barely literate mind and casts arching shadows over everything she once knew about God's kingdom and its mysteries. For why would God take such pains to fashion a life after his own existence, only to snatch it away like a coin in a magician's trick? Isabel's own mother bore 12 children in the wilderness of in a wilderness of diphtheria and death, and not one has passed. So Isabel has to ask, if God chooses who lives and dies, what does that say about him and those who call him Father? Tomorrow, she and Robert will die violently on a red knoll that bears their name today like a curse. But Isabel does not know that yet, not as she lies here, confused and afraid, angry as the devilish glow of campfire on her face. She wants to run from the future, not because of what will happen, but because of what could. She knows God, the great mystery, sees all, watches this combustible landscape and everything beyond it, not as gnarled shapes or flickering shadows, but as adolescent forms, gods in concept, sprouting into things both terrible and sublime. And this heavy truth presses Isabel deep into the stony earth. She feels it sharp against her wretched skin, but she is too tired and stricken to scream.
All right. Yeah, it's surprised me when I started collecting these. I'd written several poems for family members who had lost children in various ways, and so this is one of them. It's for a cousin, and the child was born stillborn, or died, I think, shortly after birth. And so they held a memorial service, and this is kind of describing what that memorial service was like. It's called Children. For you, child, who came cold into the world, we invite a village of kindred migrant souls to this winter mountainside in your honor, if not memory, tonight. They too have held hands and watched helpless, have risen in shock before dawn and left footprints like these in the snow from homes they will never go back to. They sing and pray with us and keep your brothers from the propane heater and stand still as we cry on their shoulders as the stars descend into sight. To raise you, child, we light candles inside paper lanterns. Hold them steady as our warmth becomes your glow. Then we let go.
Let's do one more. Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay. Okay, this will be my last one. I thought about making a joke, but it's kind of dumb, so I'm not going to. This is called Advice to a Young Mormon Poet. And it has, some people like it. It's advice that I have to, like, if any of you are thinking about becoming a Mormon poet, great news. I'm going to give you some advice right now. Take it if you want, leave it. Doesn't matter to me. But this is the advice that I would give you. Just know you are not the first to take up your pen. Our people crossed oceans and prairies and wrote poems along the way. Read their letters and diaries. You'll find poems scribbled between lines and in margins. And then read everything else, not just the poems. We have lost traditions. Find them. Respond, react, restore. Do your homework. Recover what we've forgotten as a rose blossoming in the desert. But don't get mired in the past. Treat it like a storehouse stocked with 2 centuries of consecrated goods. Engage the present, imagine futures. If you spot Zion in the sky, put it in your pocket for another day. We have enough prophets and priests. We even have plenty of poets, so nothing you say will be entirely new. It all comes down to how you say it. Don't echo the echo chamber. Take up the divining rod. Douse with Oliver for something hidden and true. Gaze with Eliza at the glittering expanse. Follow her into the wilderness. And yes, though it sounds trite, go to church. Read your scriptures. Pray. Thank you.
All right. Let's see. For the final one, I'll read. This is in the love section. I'm going to take us back to 2003.
Great year.
Some of us were adults then. And you know what? Yeah, if you were going to talk to someone remotely, you had to have a webcam. And it had to be attached to a desktop computer because nothing else could actually cast an image that far. The internet speeds were such that, it was primitive by today's standards, but what a I don't know if you remember the first time you webcam with someone from a distance, but this was, we were living in Perth, Australia at the time, and it was about 10,000 miles away from my family in Utah, and we were saying hi to them at Thanksgiving, so it was one of those momentous occasions. Thanksgiving webcam 2003. So this is the distance it takes between family to keep us connected. On a screen at each end of 10,000 miles, 2 thumb-sized windows blink awake, and there we are, faces lurching into smiles. Laughing, we shout each other's names, watch our own hands wave and make crazy faces. Our images slide into the places where our bodies move. Voices hiss with digital static. Untethered astronaut too far removed, too in survival mode to miss anyone not right in front of me till now. I caught a glimpse behind my sister's head of hands in pocket torsos, my brothers-in-law and little brother waiting for their turn. I've never said, I wish I was there with you on the phone before, but their lining up tugged me across. That's right where I'd be standing now. That space we keep for love that feels like loss, the distance that it takes to have a home. Thank you. We really appreciate Ken Sanders Books for
Yeah,
providing this
great venue.
fantastic venue for us. Yeah. Look around and marvel. All right. Thanks again.